Hello dolls, welcome back to my channel. So a few days ago, I actually watched the Me Miss Cleo documentary, and it really grabbed my attention because I feel like the whole Miss Cleo scandal and drama is kind of like, for the younger generation, just like one of those urban legends, kind of like the Milli Vanilli scandal, where you always hear people talking about it and hear people making reference to it, but you might not necessarily know, the full story behind it and what actually happened. Like, for a while, all I really knew about Miss Cleo was that one episode of That's So Raven where Raven kind of parodies her, so I wanted to dive more into Miss Cleo's story, as well as the stories of some other sort of mediums and psychics and clairvoyants on TV that people have accused of being fakes. So let's go ahead and get into it. Who we've come to know as Miss Cleo was born Uriah Del Harris in 1962. Though she was brought up in LA, Harris eventually moved to Seattle. There, she worked at a theater company and produced several plays. Though Harris didn't act in many of the plays, she wrote a lot of them. In 1996, her last project did so badly that she faked having bone cancer to explain why she couldn't pay the cast immediately, claiming that all of her money had gone to medical expenses. Before skipping town, she wrote each cast member an IOU. Those who had done theater with her in Seattle claimed that Harris never had an accent nor indicated that she was Jamaican. In fact, one of the actresses claimed that Miss Cleo was based on a Jamaican shaman character that she'd come up with back then. In the late 90s, Harris was hired by the Psychic Readers Network. This is when she began posing as a Jamaican shaman named Miss Cleo. She also began claiming that she was from Trelawney Parish, Jamaica. This Miss Cleo character was a supposed fortune teller and tarot card reader and appeared in commercials for the Psychic Readers Network. The Psychic Readers Network was a call-in service where customers could speak to psychics for insight about any personal or relationship questions. The customers would dial into a 900 number to connect with the PRN. The first 3.5 minutes were free, but each minute after, customers were charged $4.99 a minute. The fact that Miss Cleo appeared exotic, aka just a hodgepodge of Caribbean and African cultures, helped add to her supposed mysticism. It was common for her to wear animal prints and patterns, puka shells, head wraps, or a combination of those. One of the articles I read for this video pointed out that the majority of Miss Cleo's callers were white, vastly outnumbering her black callers. The article I read suggested that this was because most black viewers knew that Miss Cleo's accent and style and whole appearance were fake, so it made it a lot easier for them to believe that if she was putting on a character in an accent, that it was logical to also believe that she probably wasn't a real psychic. White audiences, however, were more likely to hear Miss Cleo's accent and see her whole sort of Caribbean vibe, and use this as evidence to assume that she had some sort of mystical or clairvoyant abilities. This is likely because she fit sort of whatever voodoo, witch doctor, mystical Negro stereotypes that a lot of people have, and that a lot of people place upon black people who present as if they're from non-Western countries. The Me Miss Cleo documentary also said that a lot of people tended to view Miss Cleo as a sort of mammy figure and believe that she had sage advice because of that. I feel like this was just another case of black women being able to sort of profit and make more of a career playing a harmful stereotype and caricature of themselves or other black women or black people and, be able to make more of a career out of that than they would make from just being themselves. I think more modern examples and more examples that you guys would be familiar with are sort of people like Glozell for people who were on YouTube in the early days, and even comedians like Tiffany Haddish. The article claimed this only increased as white audiences began to watch more black shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, as well as shows and movies that aired on BET. Adrian P. Sebro, an assistant professor of media studies at UT Austin, said about this, "I would even throw in people's comfort level with Miss Cleo because it was an idea of how someone can align with the wisdom of black women. And not just black women, but black Caribbean women. When she's talking to people, she's making them feel like she's one of their homegirls. It really became a point that that's their black friend. I always saw it to a point that it's like people wanted to be invested in a culture or a space where they can believe that they're part of something." Though they were just commercials, Miss Cleo was considered peak entertainment. People loved watching her give relationship advice and seemingly give people better insight than their closest friends and family could. Miss Cleo seemed to have a no-nonsense way about her that made it appear as if she was telling the truth to callers and shooting them straight.
Okay, I was wondering who the father of my baby was.
All right, let's take a look. The Miss Cleo DNA test. I'm solely searching for the father of your baby. Oh, it's the one that's very unpleasant, okay?
Okay.
And he's also the one that had another girlfriend while he was sleeping with you.
Yes, he did.
Yep, that's him. That's the daddy.
Okay.
But you knew that.
I wasn't sure.
The Miss Cleo commercials were so popular that they were parodied by Deborah Wilson on Mad TV.
Oh, and we have our very first caller. Hello, caller.
Hello, is this Cleo?
Yes, baby, it is.
Oh, honey, you're the one that can see into the future.
Yes, darling, you got the right Cleo.
Oh, honey, can I ask you a question?
Run.
Was you working on September the 10th?
And Dave Chappelle on Chappelle's Show, and in an episode of That's So Raven. Raven and Deborah Wilson actually appeared in Call Me Miss Cleo and shared their personal and professional experiences with Miss Cleo. Raven likened the Miss Cleo commercials to the Maury Povich Show, since she often did calls and readings related to relationship conflicts.
There is a secret, baby. You understand me?
Yes.
In this relationship. The situation that we're looking at that is one of another relationship. Let me stop trying to be polite. You understand me? And the secret is yours, is it not?
He was with someone else.
And you are too.
Her popularity also made her a household name and arguably a cultural icon at the time, and also started a wave of other psychic call lines. The documentary also featured some people who claimed that Miss Cleo had in fact made true predictions about them, or predicted something about their future or the future of a loved one close to them that actually came true, or was able to connect with one of their deceased loved ones. However, it is important to point out that all of these people were close to Miss Cleo in some regard. Some had worked with her in the past, some had been her friend, and two of the men interviewed were actually her godsons. Miss Cleo's house of cards came tumbling down after accusations of deceptive advertising and fraud were raised against the Psychic Readers Network. Customers claimed they received unsolicited emails saying that Miss Cleo had been authorized to give them a tarot reading. When customers called in to get these readings, they often didn't speak with Miss Cleo herself, but one of her many assistants who were reading from scripts. Some of these assistants, who were employed by the Psychic Readers Network, actually were included in the documentary. They said they had to be ready to do a reading at any minute, and their goal was to keep the caller on the line as long as possible. It got to the point where some of the male employees were doing female voices once they found out that it tended to keep people on the phone longer. In the first few minutes of the call, they were meant to get the caller's name and addresses, that way they could be sent advertisements in the future. They also said that they didn't receive much training other than reviewing a script. One of the former employees pointed out that a lot of people didn't actually want a psychic reading, but instead they just wanted someone to talk to and to listen to their problems. Several former employees said they didn't feel equipped to help some of the callers who were clearly struggling mentally and emotionally, and began to feel guilty about encouraging them to stay on the line for a pricey phone call. Customers also complained that they were charged for calls that the Psychic Readers Network had claimed were free. According to the Washington Post, the federal government actually calculated that collectively Americans spent over $1 billion on so-called free calls with the Psychic Readers Network. Other complaints said that either their children or another minor living in the household placed the call, and some even said that they were being mailed bills to their address and no one in the house even called the Psychic Readers Network ever. Some of these unpaid bills had been sent to collections, but a lot of the customers didn't even know that they had to pay the bills because they had never actually been a customer of the Psychic Readers Network because they had never called them. In 2002, the Federal Trade Commission charged the Psychic Readers Network with deceptive advertising, billing, and collecting practices. Cleo's promoters and the owners of the company, Stephen Feder and Peter Stoltz, were also named in the suit. The charge also claimed the Psychic Readers Network harassed customers with non-stop telemarketing calls. Since there was no proof that she had masterminded this deception or even facilitated it, Miss Cleo wasn't personally charged. She was more of a spokesperson for the fraud, as the extent of her deception was the Miss Cleo character that she'd cooked up. Though she hadn't personally been sued, the investigation exposed her as a fraud. It came out in all of the legal proceedings that Miss Cleo wasn't really Jamaican, and in fact her parents were American-born too. Many who had fallen in love with her charisma and warmth now saw Miss Cleo, or more rightfully Ure Harris, as little more than a failed actress and a liar. When asked if she was truly a psychic, Harris responded, "I'm more a shaman, an elder in a community who has visions and gives direction to people in their village. My clients and my students are my villages. I take care of this community. If you sit down at my table, you have to take away a lesson and not just learn what is going to happen tomorrow. I also perform weddings, both gay and straight marriages, and house cleansings and blessings." In a clip from a documentary called Hotline, Harris claimed that she was a trained priestess able to commune with the dead. She also said that she didn't consider herself a medium. I saw several publications saying that Call Me Miss Cleo went too easy on Harris, or that it left a lot to be desired. The documentary spent a decent amount of time talking about Harris's traumatic past and how it possibly influenced her to want to help others. The point was also raised that at the end of the day, the advice and warmth that Miss Cleo had offered people was genuine. While these things might be true, I do feel like this outlook sort of overlooks the fact that she was still lying to people about who she was, and that it was the sort of Miss Cleo character and persona that she cooked up that made people so willing to spend their money with the Psychic Readers Network to begin with. And while I completely understand that Miss Cleo herself wasn't like reaching into people's pockets and taking out the money on her own, she was still well aware what was going on, and we also can't forget that based on her past, she is completely fine with lying to people and completely fine with taking money from people. Harris was eventually let go from the Psychic Readers Network. Though she wasn't the only person involved in the scandal, her reputation was damaged the most. She definitely took the bulk of the ridicule and was the main focus of news reports. Up until her death, Uriah Harris maintained that she was truly Jamaican and had psychic abilities and had been unfairly treated by the Psychic Readers Network. In 2016, Uriah Harris passed away at the age of 53 from colon cancer. This whole Miss Cleo scandal did not end the idea of TV psychics or mediums. Over the years, several psychics, mediums, and clairvoyants have fascinated audiences by claiming to use their powers on television. Sometimes they're dead on, or so their subject would like to think. Other times, they're not even in the ballpark with their readings.
And I feel some arthritis, by the way. There's a lot of arthritis, and there's a bone problem. There's also something with the back. So I don't know if she sees to sit and have a pillow at the back of her,
No.
or is that you?
No.
No? That doesn't make sense to you? Okay, and what about trouble with legs?
No.
Okay, who has trouble with the legs now?
Well, my father's had 2 hip replacements.
2 hip replacements. He cannot walk as well as he used to.
Oh, no, he walks very well.
Okay.
I lost my boyfriend tragically a few years ago. They never found him. And I've had such a hard time since, every day.
The reason why you didn't find him is because he's in water. And to find him in water, it's like the girl that's missing in Aruba. You can't find somebody.
Well, it was September 11th. There was no, he was a fireman, but there was
no, see, I keep seeing him in water.
Also, just to quickly differentiate, being a medium and a clairvoyant both fall under the umbrella of being psychic. A psychic is defined as someone sensitive to the influences of supernatural or non-physical forces. Clairvoyants are able to see and sense things beyond the range of ordinary perception and can often see events in the future. A medium has these extrasensory perceptions too, but they're specifically in the spirit world, typically with deceased people. Of course, there's no real definitive answer as to whether mediums, psychics, and clairvoyants actually exist. And even more, even if they do exist, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone who claims to have these powers actually does possess them. So I do want to get into some other clairvoyants and mediums who've, built a platform off of their psychic abilities, but have been questioned very often as to whether these abilities are actually genuine. The most popular one is probably Theresa Caputo, also known as the Long Island Medium. Theresa claims she's been able to see, sense, and feel spirits since she was 4 years old. She said that growing up, she had a lot of suppressed spiritual energy that she eventually learned how to channel. Theresa explained how she receives information from spirits by saying, "I see, hear, and feel things differently than we do in the physical world. Spirit mostly speaks to me through a sixth sense, a kind of feeling and knowing. When I get information, it feels like a very strong intuition or recall." Spirit also uses a vocabulary of signs and symbols that they show me during a reading. Over time, I assigned words, phrases, and meanings to the certain images I was shown, and then through trial and error, Spirit helped me add new ones until we created an entire vocabulary for us to work with. I translate my signs and what I feel as best as I can and then deliver the messages, but it's the client's job to interpret how the meaning is significant. It's like piecing together a puzzle and can sometimes sound like guesswork, but Spirit speaks another language at another speed and in another dimension. Though she's most known for her TLC show Long Island Medium, Theresa has also written several books about being a medium and also tours the country doing a live show called Theresa Caputo: The Live Experience. Theresa charges $50 for a group reading and $175 for private readings, with some of the profits being donated to charity. Theresa's skills have been questioned and criticized by scientists as well as by several publications. In 2012, she was awarded the Pegasus Award by the James Randi Educational Foundation. James Randi was a noted skeptic who sought to educate people on pseudosciences and expose psychic frauds. So basically, this award is kind of like a Razzie, but for psychics. Theresa received the Pegasus Award because, according to the foundation, she was the psychic performer who fooled the most people with the least amount of effort. Randi said about these psychics, "Why do these pseudo-psychic spectacles bother those of us at the James Randi Educational Foundation? First and foremost, they are not true. But much more importantly to us, such performances seem to prey on people at their most vulnerable moments, those who have suffered the loss of loved ones, and these mediums use such grief to make a buck. Psychologists tell us that this keeps the grieving stuck in their grief rather than going through the natural stages of acceptance that are healthy." Inside Edition also published an article questioning Theresa's abilities. Though the Long Island Medium show made her look spot on with her readings, Theresa got a lot wrong in her live readings. For one, she asked several audience members, one after the other, if their mothers had passed, and fortunately, all of their mothers were still alive. In another instance, Theresa claimed she was communicating with the spirit on the sitter's mom's side, but what Theresa was saying about the spirit only applied to someone on the sitter's father's side. Mark Edward, a former psychic turned psychic debunker, has said that Theresa uses a tactic called cold reading in order to do her readings. Basically, what cold reading means is if you ask a question, especially a vague one, and especially in front of a larger audience, somebody is bound to relate. For example, I could just generally throw out there, oh, does the number 2 have a significance to anybody? And that could mean anything. That could mean you know someone with a birthday in February. That could mean your birthday is in February. It could mean that you have 2 kids or 2 siblings. It could mean that you know a 2-year-old. It's vague enough to the point where anyone could make it apply to them, and therefore someone is going to use that as evidence that someone is trying to connect with them from the other side. Another tactic Edward claims Theresa uses is called piggybacking. This is when a medium asks a question and then they're wrong about it and they say, oh, that must be about someone else, or this message must be meant for a different family member in order to save face. Jessica Remo, a writer for NewJersey.com, recounted her experience at one of Theresa's live shows back in 2018. Jessica said that at the beginning of the show, Theresa made a speech about how it was up to the audiences to determine how her messages fit into their lives. She asked the entire front row if anyone had a father who passed, and thanks to probability, there was someone. When Theresa asked if that person's dad died from anything chest-related, she was incorrect. Jessica said that anytime Theresa asked an audience member a more in-depth question that didn't apply to them, it happened to apply to someone else. She said that none of Theresa's messages, readings, or questions were really that specific or that accurate. After the show, Jessica said that she wasn't any more convinced that Theresa was a psychic or that psychics in general existed. She also pointed out the fact that in this day and age, it's pretty easy to find personal information about people on sites like Google or social media and then just pass it off as if a spirit gave you that information. Other Theresa skeptics have also claimed that she uses her staff members and assistants to conduct interviews with clients before she does a reading for them. That way she can get information from them and make sure that it's accurate. A 2016 issue of the Skeptical Inquirer stated that Theresa is selective about guests and seating arrangements for her live shows. She places those she already knows or has done readings for in the past in the front row. Guests also sit in numbered chairs so that staff can brief her prior to the live show on specific information about them, and Theresa can easily point them out. Mark Edward, the psychic turned debunker who I mentioned earlier, wrote an expose on Theresa that the Skeptical Inquirer referenced in their issue. According to him, Theresa and producers do in fact use information from social media to inform her readings. One such example is when Theresa told a client she was getting psychic messages about baby clothes, to which the client responded she had just posted a bunch of baby clothes on her Facebook page. Like Miss Cleo, Theresa Caputo has become a sort of character, with several people dressing up as her for Halloween and SNL skits parodying her and her abilities. Several television hosts, including Anderson Cooper, Howard Stern, and Andy Cohen, have questioned Theresa's psychic abilities. Anderson said, "There's a lot you can say to a room of 300 people. If you say somebody here aches of a loved one, there's a pretty good chance that somebody has a piece of jewelry with some ashes in it. People so want to believe in things. I'm open to possibilities, but I want to see actual proof." Andy Cohen said that he wanted Theresa to connect with his friend Natasha Richardson, an actress who died in a skiing accident back in 2009. However, he said after minutes of Theresa trying, Natasha never came through and it seemed like she was fishing during a lot of her reading. About people believing she's a fraud, Theresa has said, "It doesn't matter who they are. I respect that it's hard to understand what I do. Whether someone believes them, it doesn't matter to me. People believe in what I do." Another popular medium accused of being a fraud is Tyler Henry, otherwise known as the Hollywood Medium. He's a self-proclaimed clairvoyant medium who says he realized his gift after foreseeing his grandmother's death just moments before it happened. Tyler spent the majority of his young adulthood doing readings before deciding to make it a full-time job. When actress Sarah Paulson contacted him to do a reading, Tyler's popularity increased. He said his goal with his readings is to provide people with validation, comfort, and closure. Interestingly, he's claimed that he does in fact receive spiritual messages through his 5 senses rather than through a 6th sense, which is what most psychics say. While he does his readings, Tyler typically sketches on a piece of paper, kind of like a form of automatic writing, in order to help him channel spiritual messages. Most people were introduced to Tyler Henry from his 2015 appearance on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. In 2016, Tyler got his own show, Hollywood Medium with Tyler Henry. The show aired on E! Network, which makes me feel like his appearance on Keeping Up was just a way for the network to sort of soft launch his show. As the name suggests, Tyler mainly focuses on doing readings for celebrities. Some of his famous clients have included Khloe Kardashian, Lil' Kim, Megan Fox, and Macklemore. In 2016, interest in Tyler increased after he seemingly predicted the death of Alan Thicke. During a reading on Hollywood Medium, Henry suggested Thicke might have a heart problem like several other men in his family. Months later, in December of 2016, Alan Thicke died of an aortic dissection. While a lot of people took this as proof that Tyler was psychic, others said it was just a lucky guess due to Alan's family medical history and the fact that heart disease is the #1 killer of American men. Non-believers claim that Tyler makes use of both hot and cold readings to get his information. I've already described what a cold reading is, but a hot reading is just getting the information about someone concretely for yourself. So this could mean asking a producer or interviewer to, talk to the person before you do the reading. It could also mean obtaining the information yourself by searching them up on Google or social media. And we have to point out the elephant in the room that since most of Tyler's clients are famous people, it's pretty easy to find out pretty personal things about them just by looking online. In 2019, GQ sent one of their skeptical reporters, Brennan Kildane, to do a reading with Tyler. He acknowledged that a lot of the information Tyler initially brought up about him was available online. Tyler gave Brennan some messages from his deceased grandfather, which Brennan said, while heartfelt, didn't really sound like things that his grandfather would have actually said. Brennan did admit that he was spooked when Tyler claimed his grandfather was telling him that his sister could expect a massive life change coming. According to Brennan, just days later, his sister announced that after 30 years, she was moving from Cleveland to New York City. Despite this strange coincidence, Brennan remained skeptical about the idea of psychics. Brennan also brought up a New York Times sting operation, which I also read and researched for this video, in which skeptics created Facebook profiles full of false personal details. The skeptics then attended a live reading with a psychic. Often the psychics would then act as if the false details they found out about the skeptic online had been communicated to them by spirits and brought these details up in their readings. Earlier this year in March, Tyler started his second show, Life After Death, which aired on Netflix. In promotion for this new show, he did a reading with USA Today reporter Aaron Jensen. Like Brennan, Aaron said initially Tyler was picking up on information that was already available online. However, later on in the reading, Tyler claimed he didn't feel blood flow all the way to his feet, which he typically attributes to a spirit having diabetes. Tyler said the sensation was extreme, meaning someone probably lost an extremity due to diabetes, to which Aaron responded her aunt had actually lost a toe from diabetes. Tyler also correctly and specifically named the cause of death of 2 of Aaron's family members. Aaron said that after the reading, she was more convinced of Tyler's abilities. She didn't say she fully believed he was psychic, but likened it to a sense of intuition that most people do possess. Life After Death was met with several negative reviews. Many spoke down on Tyler, calling him narcissistic, psychotic, and superficial for even presuming to know anything about these deceased people or their family members. Others called out Netflix for even giving him a platform. In their review of the show, McGill University claimed that Tyler was essentially playing Guess Who with people's trauma. They also pointed out that Tyler claimed he picked up on information that could easily be assumed and presented it as a supernatural ability. For instance, he claimed to a private investigator working on a cold case that the deceased person felt that their case was mishandled. I think it's unlikely that a private investigator would have ever been hired if it was thought that the case was handled properly. And I don't think that most people believe that cold cases are handled properly because the crime wasn't solved. And I also find it kind of unfortunate that the only information the deceased had for Tyler was that they felt that the case was mishandled instead of, more helpful information as to who killed them. I actually have heard of cases where psychics are actually used to help solve the crime. And any information they get, I don't think it's admissible in court, just saying, oh, the psychic told me that this person did it. I don't think that that's valid. But I do, from my understanding, believe that it can provide a lead if the psychic, gets a vibe or is told about a certain suspect. I think it can just point investigators in a direction. I don't think, if someone murdered me and I told a medium like, oh, this person did it, I don't think they're going to jail immediately because what is that, hearsay? Probably. Or a lie. Tyler has expanded his brand into what he calls the Collective. The Collective is membership-based and offers virtual group readings, live Q&As, and private reading giveaways. Tyler also goes on tours to do readings and speaking engagements and has published 2 books. Apparently, he has a waiting list of over 300,000 people who would like a reading from him. He's acknowledged that sometimes he gets things wrong in his readings. He said about this, "I don't think that invalidates when I get it right. Even the best basketball players still miss their free throws sometimes, and we can still recognize that they have talent." The Psychic Twins are a pair of clairvoyant mediums who are pretty much just as doubted as they are prominent. The Psychic Twins claim to be able to speak to the dead, channel the spirits of celebrities, and predict major events before they occur. Some of the dead figures the twins claim to have contacted include Natalie Wood, Michael Jackson, and Princess Diana. They tried to break into entertainment first, working as performance artists before they were psychics. In 2003, the twins left New York City to move to LA and become professional psychics. Once they started doing readings, they reportedly charged up to $500 per person. The Psychic Twins' most popular claim is that they predicted 9/11 back in 1999. Their prediction stated, "We are seeing terrorist attacks on federal buildings, particularly South Carolina or Georgia, by July 2002, and also the New York Trade Center, the World Trade Center in 2002. 9/11, of course, happened in 2001, not 2002, but to be fair, they did say that it would happen by July of 2002. However, several federal buildings have been attacked in the past, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that it could have happened again. Over 10 years later, in 2011, one of the twins, Terry Jameson, said that she and her sister predicted 9/11 entirely correct. She said, "We both had written exactly in detail all of the events of 9/11 and even the simultaneous attack on the Pentagon." But revisiting their original prediction from 1999 shows that their claim is false. They never said anything about the Pentagon, nor did they give any specific details as to how the 9/11 attack would actually take place. The twins have claimed, and a lot of identical twins do say this, that they've had a sort of telepathic link since they were in the womb, and they also claim that they have a shared sense of intuition.
Okay, so you guys have been felt psychic ability since you were kids?
All our lives, Tyra, all our lives.
All your lives?
Yes, even as children.
And tell me what you mean when you say that it's painful to be a psychic. What does that mean, it's painful?
Well, you take on everybody's stuff. You feel everybody's pain. It's really hard. Yeah. And if somebody's emotional, you cry too. You're an empath, so you probably can relate to this. You have a heightened empathy.
Similar to Tyler Henry, they do use some sense or form of automatic writing to help channel the spiritual energies. The Psychic Twins have actually claimed to predict a lot of major things like 9/11, the death of JFK Jr., the election and re-election of George W. Bush, as well as several stock market crashes. Over the course of their career, the Psychic Twins have appeared on several shows, news broadcasts, and have written books. They said their goal was to eventually host their own show. While this hasn't happened yet, they've had their own YouTube channel since 2015. They've done readings with several internet celebrities, including Lily Singh, Shane Dawson, and Trisha Paytas. The Psychic Twins have also done true crime videos on their channel. It seemed almost inevitable that this would become a trend with how popular true crime has been lately, and when you have people growing platforms based on claiming they can communicate with dead people, it seems like it's just bound to happen. They did a weird video with Shane Dawson in which they tried to shed more light on the JonBenet Ramsey case. During the video, one of the twins claimed to be channeling the spirit of JonBenet, which a lot of viewers found laughable at the least, but many found it distasteful.
JonBenet, are you with us? Yes. Yes. Oh. I am here. Thank you for coming in and speaking with us today, Jean-Benet. We've been talking about your sad passing, and we've been talking with you a lot.
I'm like,
tell us what
I've never seen this even like this. Like
you were killed. It was a shock. I was so surprised. I forgive Daddy and Mommy for what happened. I forgive everyone involved in my murder.
From looking at a lot of the comment sections and threads about them, it seems that most people are upset by the psychic twins continuing to make predictions about unsolved deaths that don't seem to be based on any sort of facts or proof. In 2020, Joey Graceffa did a video revisiting his reading with the psychic twins to see if any of their predictions had come true 4 years later. In short, most of their predictions were wrong, and the ones that were correct were only partially correct. At one point, they predicted that he would have at least one girl, which seems like a pretty safe bet for most people who are deciding to have kids. The comments jokingly pointed out that while Joey didn't have any kids, he did have a girl puppy, so maybe the twins did predict something right. A lot of the twins' predictions are so general that they're bound to come true, but they're also so vague that they don't point to any sort of psychic ability having influenced them. For example, for 2016 they predicted, "We think 2016 will be another crazy year, so buckle up. We see several terror plots in progress now for New York City, Washington, D.C., and California. There are plots in Europe, France, Belgium, Germany, and Scandinavia. London is also in danger, so be very vigilant I can't take this seriously, I'm sorry. London is also in danger, so be very vigilant if you are traveling. Some of these attacks will be thwarted." So basically they predicted there would be an attack somewhere in the Western world, which of course was more likely to happen than not. I just find it interesting that they did not predict that Trump would be elected, and I believe, don't quote me in my research, that I came across the fact that they actually said Hillary would win the election and not Donald Trump. Another creator named Sid Dwyer has actually done a very deep dive on the psychic twins, kind of just exposing them and talking about a lot of cases I didn't, where they were pretty off the mark, so I do recommend checking his video out. It's a really good one. About those who doubt them, the psychic twins have said, "People send us hate mail and death threats without looking at our proven predictions. We always say skeptics are like atheists who refuse to look at proof no matter how specific. It's impossible to dismiss or ignore our 1,500 predictions on tape. People often tell us that our gift is like a superpower and they wish they could do it. There are some people who claim that what we do is impossible, but we have put some significant cracks in the glass ceiling. We are shattering the paradigms of what is possible, and this is threatening to many. It's a little like Columbus, who proved that the world wasn't flat. That's not true, he did not do that. People don't like it when we explode their long-held, deeply entrenched beliefs." People claiming to have supernatural abilities is definitely nothing new, so I don't think we'll see it going away anytime soon. I especially think this is because the existence of psychics is something that can never be fully disproven. Most psychics have gotten some predictions right, but so have normal people who don't claim any supernatural abilities. And for every prediction a psychic or medium has gotten right, there are typically several that they've gotten dead wrong. Also, there's no real measure as to how specific a prediction has to be for it to count as, an actual genuine prediction. For example, I could say, "Oh, some of you will have pizza for dinner tonight," or "Some of you probably know someone who died in an accident." That does not make me psychic or clairvoyant. I just know that thousands of you are going to see this video, and it's more likely than not that those statements will apply to at least some of you. Even if I did say something slightly more specific like, "Oh, you're having a relationship struggle soon and you really need to think hard because a big choice that you're going to have to make is coming up," I still just made that up right now on the spot, but I'm sure at least one or two of you were like, "Oh my God, that's so true, that applies to me." Not because I have any sort of special abilities, but because of a psychological phenomenon called the Barnum effect. The Barnum effect causes us to take sort of a general statement and find a way to make it apply to us and make it feel like it was meant for us. A lot of horoscopes and fortune tellers actually do rely on the Barnum effect to have their clients or readers feel as if their predictions are accurate, when a lot of the times they're just vague and random. I personally do think that there's something to be said about the fact that a lot of these psychics and mediums have some sort of background in performing arts or, tried to make it as an actor or performer, and then when that didn't work out, they decided to lean into their psychic ability. But, you know, part of me also wants to be like, you know, adults are adults. They can spend their money however they want. It's their business. But then I think this is kind of a little bit more of a gray area because a lot of these people are desperate and a lot of these people are grieving, and that probably clouds their judgment as to how they're spending their money and who they tend to believe if all they want is just closure and comfort and someone to listen to them and validate them. I thought it would be perfect to end on this quote John Oliver said about sidekicks on his show Last Week Tonight. When psychic abilities are presented as authentic, it emboldens a vast underworld of unscrupulous vultures more than happy to make money by offering an open line to the afterlife, as well as many other bullshit services. So that is it for me today, dolls. Definitely let me know your experience with any sort of psychic or clairvoyant and medium. In New York a few years ago, I actually had my palm read, not because I really believe in this sort of stuff, but I just wanted to see, you know, oh, how accurate can she really get? Because I don't believe in this stuff. And it was only $5. And, you know, I was right. She just told me the most vague bullshit ever. I was like, girl, you probably tell everybody who walks in here the same story. And the whole time she was just like, oh, for more specific details, to learn more, you can pay a little bit extra to extend your session. It's like, girl, I know a scam when I see one. This is a scam. But anyways, be sure to let me know your experience with any sort of psychic if you have one, or if someone that you know or is close to you has one. I would definitely be intrigued to see if there are any people out there who've contacted a psychic and they were actually right about some stuff. Or, you know, even if they were right, do you believe it's because they're a psychic, or do you believe it's because they just got lucky? As always, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so that you can stick around, and make sure to follow me on Twitter. If you'd like to become a channel member, you can click the link in the description of this video. See you dolls very soon. Love you. Bye-bye.